Welcome back, everybody. 6:46 a.m., October 23rd, 2017. That is Eastern Time. It's Monday again. So, yes, I'll be heading to work soon, but we have an update. I wanted to touch base with you guys on a couple things, actually, that popped up overnight. Now, as far as last night goes, we did see this disturbance pop up on the hurricane charts. So we do have a confirmation. If you guys remember, this thing opened up at 30%. So that's a pretty, even though 30% is not a high number, that's a high number to open up with. So they basically skipped those 10 and 20% that we were used to seeing during the peak of hurricane season. Actually, they would go to 10 to 20, then they would double to 40. This one started at 30, and now we're at 40 as I woke up this morning. It was probably around 5 a.m. I saw this. It may have been a little sooner. It's actually the 2 a.m. update, so it was sooner. So this is at 40%, guys. This is the disturbance we've been watching that we suspect might mimic what Hurricane Sandy did. And the reason that we're talking about this is because it's the same time of year. We're in October, where most, if not all, our storms should be forming in this area. We did see Ophelia form way out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Once again, breaking a lot of rules, but you know what? It just goes to show that these rules, if you want to call them that, are basically just guidelines, guys. And you know what? We've had hurricanes as late as December and January in the Atlantic Ocean, big hurricanes too. So just because November 30th rolls around, that does not mean that hurricane season is done with. Things do happen. And with seasons like this, where there's just so much activity going on, different records being broken, these storms are very different now. We have the typhoon deal going on with the MJO effect also, which is kind of related to a La Nina type deal. We're going to dig into that a little more when I do the longer videos. Because I'm in a rush, obviously, this morning, this is going to be a shorter one, kind of specific to what we're dealing with here in the Caribbean. So, as I said, we're at 40%. It is starting to form in the same spot that Sandy formed and the same spot that Nate formed. And there are some models that are taking this thing, shooting the gap into the Gulf. So just because Sandy had this type of trip going up the East Coast over Cuba, that doesn't mean that this storm is going to follow that. I'm just making the comparison because it's just interesting how the same exact time of year, 5 years later, we're getting this storm forming. And it was a tropical wave for a while, and now we're dealing with an actual disturbance on the charts. So we need to keep an eye on it, and we're going to show you some other stuff real quick. And now on top of this recognized disturbance right now, we do have about 3 or 4 other known tropical waves going on, and guess what? They are all in the Atlantic Ocean. You can see one right here, clear as day. This is a tropical wave right here. This is when you see basically a quarter circle being formed. You can see it right there. This is marked on charts, and there's also a wave down in this area. It's almost off screen, but you can kind of see where the storms are forming here. So we have a wave here, we have another one here, and there's a big wave up by the west coast of Africa, including one up in the North Atlantic that would be pulled in the jet stream towards Ireland and the UK, which we've been talking about a lot lately. But with your own eyes, guys, you can see right here, which way is this spinning? That is counterclockwise. We have a wave right here. So as of right now, anyone that follows this stuff throughout the day, watch this area. This could easily become another invest area, or actually a disturbance first and then an invest. Sorry, I'm drinking coffee while talking to you guys. Sorry about that. All right, so anyway, this is our main concern right here. We have the storms blowing up. So we have that factor there. We have a natural counterclockwise movement going on in this area. I know it looks like up here is going clockwise. These are top level clouds, so it can be a little bit confusing. What you're looking for are those surface movements. And this is why this became an invest, because the storms are there, the warm water is there, and now they're starting to see a momentum of a counterclockwise spin. So that would be the next step, and that is also why they brought this thing up to the 40% number overnight. It started at 30 once again, and now it's at 40. So they are progressing this and raising the chances of it becoming an invest. So let's look at those waves. Here's that one I showed you just before, the one where we have the quarter circle going on. and then we had that counterclockwise spin right here. This is the one that was a little bit off screen down here. And then look, right off of the west coast of Africa, the northwest coast right here. And then here's the one up by the jet stream that will be moved into Ireland and the UK. So just to give you guys some like visuals so you can see it on more than one chart. Sometimes you look at a chart and you just don't, it doesn't register with some people, and I understand that. It took me a long time to really start understanding these charts and comparing them and understanding why some charts said one thing and another one said another. It is very confusing stuff, but it's just like anything else, guys. You start looking at them, you read them, you see what produces from them, and then it just clicks. It starts making sense in your mind, and then when you can actually learn how to talk about it, which it took me a long time to do. I still mess up all the time, guys. Every day I mess up in these videos. I make mistakes. I mess up east and west, but you know what? At least we're here trying to learn this stuff. We want to know more than what they tell us on TV, and that's why we're here. So with that said, we have waves going on in the Atlantic Ocean towards the end of October. So the whole idea of November 30th being the end of hurricane season, it's not a cutoff date by any means. It's just a guideline that we follow based on data from the past that shows us most hurricanes happen in the summer and then into the fall, and then they usually stop. So that's where we have the base on this stuff. So all right, a couple more charts before I let you go. All right, and if you see where my mouse is, right here is where we are getting that 40% disturbance right now. So it's in this area, and you can see it's going to move into warm water. It's right under Cuba is the warmest of it. We still have some water that's into the Gulf here. And there are some models, guys, believe it or not, having this thing form right around this area, and then it goes into the gap in the Gulf. So again, this does not mean that this storm is going to form, one. Two, it does not mean it's going to go up the East Coast like Sandy did. And three, there's an absolute chance that if it does form, the Gulf is just as much at risk as the East Coast is. So, again, the reason I'm comparing this to Sandy is because of the time frame. And also because of things like this. Like when you get the CMC model, which has been basically the only model that's been on this storm for 2 straight weeks now. 2 weeks ago, you were able to see this storm form right here in its later date charts. And, of course, 10 days out is a long time. You don't want to make predictions off of that, but here we go. We are now 3 and 4 days out from the possible formation of this storm, and this thing is still showing that exact movement. And once again, we have low pressures in the Pacific Ocean that actually transfer into the Caribbean and aid into this storm forming. I'll move it slowly so you can watch. Keep your eyes right down here in this area. I'll move it forward. You can see those lows moving to the east, and then that forms. You almost get 1, 2, 3 separate areas forming, but the bigger of the 3 takes over, and there you have it, right over Jamaica. This is projected to go over Cuba towards the Bahamas. If you guys remember, it actually formed over in this area, went under South Florida, almost touching South Florida before it went up the East Coast. So you can see just every day these little changes can affect everything. And as of right now, from this point to right here is the exact path that Sandy formed. Now, if you guys remember with Sandy, Sandy was projected to come up through Cuba, past the Bahamas, and then boom, right out into the ocean, no questions asked, no one cared about it, and that was it. Until we had to care about it, and that's when all of a sudden this storm was up here and it just made a left turn, and that was due to the Bermuda Atlantic pressure battling a front from the jet stream. So we have a very, very similar situation going on. We have high pressure in the Atlantic Ocean, and if you notice, this storm rides right up the East Coast because of a pressure line from the jet stream. So it's almost like we're looking at data from 2012 with this storm as of right now. One more time, I'll show you. It goes right over Cuba, or right over the Jamaica there, and then Cuba. Passes the Bahamas. This is Sandy to a T up until this point. Now this is when Sandy came out here, and then boom, went just like that. So as of right now, we got to watch and see what happens in these later days. Of course, this storm needs to form before anything, but according to these charts, they're beginning to agree. Here's Ventus Sky. And I have the wind down to 10 meters, so you're not going to see a lot of movement right now until this thing actually forms. But you can see right here that counterclockwise movement on the 23rd, which is today, already showing on Ventus Sky. And Ventus Sky is very touchy with showing things before it happens. So usually you have to wait until you have a cyclone formation before Ventus Sky will notice it. You do get stuff popping up here and there. I'll move forward a couple days and just give you an idea of where the wind is going to be moving in the Caribbean for the next couple weeks. You can see all counterclockwise. It moves right across there, and our 40% disturbance shows it cutting right across here. So it could make landfall, stunting its growth, and then reforming here, and that's when it would pass under Cuba and then over this way. But like I said, some of these models have this thing going right into the Gulf, kind of like the GEM does right now, which is the European version of the Ventus Sky model. Right here by Cuba, up into the gap. And then I believe this shows it going right over Florida. There you go. So all different models have different paths going on, but they all are beginning to agree that something is going to form here. So that's what we need to watch out for, guys. I hate to cut this short. Got to get to work. But definitely wanted to point out that 40% deal we have going on. This afternoon, it'll probably be a little different. We'll have some more data to look at, and that's when we'll talk again. All right, guys, have a great Monday. We'll get through it. I promise. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.